Well, in English, they first start by using the same vocabulary that they're going to see on the test, asking them questions, maybe not on paper yet, but asking them questions that are worded like the questions that they're going to see on the test so that they are familiar with that language, they're familiar with that complexity, and this starts fairly early in the year. Once we get closer to the actual test time, then there are some practice tests. As far as like the do nows or the bell ringers, will be a question or two from the test, and they'll have a chance to look it over, dissect the actual wording of the test, learn exactly what it is they're being asked to do, and what steps they would need to take to answer the question before they would actually answer the question. So knowing the steps to take to get there to that answer.
How do you give kids, for whatever kinds of assessments they're going to take in high school, which there's just so many of them like this, are there practice tests that they ever take? Is there ever a simulation or anything like that?
Again, it kind of depends on which exam you're talking about.
Okay.
If you're talking about like Algebra 1 EOC, English 1 EOC, they do what's considered a mock exam where they actually take, a released STAR test so that they have that practice of just that stamina to actually work through those problems.
When did they do that?
They did that actually last week on the 4-day week. They took the time to actually take the test that week and then actually then go back individually, look at where kids scored. They actually took last year's exam and look at where kids scored and begin to set goals right here now that we're deep into review, because now they're going to be reviewing for the next few weeks on the topics that we've, have the data-driven information to decide what they're going to focus on for the reviews.
Did you have to adjust their schedules to enable them to take a full simulation, or did they just take it over a period of 2 or 3 days?
They took it over a period of 2 or 3 days in that classroom, just because of the I guess maybe the logistics of such a large campus. It's very hard to just stop and do mock exams all day. And they have so much other testing that goes on with TSI and then SAT, PSATs, and all of those.
Explain to me, what's the TSI? What exactly is that?
TSI is the Texas Success Initiative, which is basically the AccuPlacer exam. All of our juniors take this in the spring of their junior year. There's a math portion, a reading portion, and a writing portion.
Okay. Have they already taken that this year?
They are in the process of taking it this year.
And it's on computer?
It's a computer.
How lengthy of a test is it?
It depends on the student. It sort of reacts to them. There are 20 questions to begin with, and then depending on how well they do on those 20 questions, they're either finished or they get about 40 more questions.
And this is directly tied to your high school's accountability also?
It is, yes.
So how do y'all go about preparing? I know on a more specific sense, I know on a general sense, we're talking about the kind of instruction that goes on every day at Tascosa. But in a specific sense, how do you prepare them for the TSI?
Teachers specifically do that at the junior level, and so I don't know if English is the exact same way, but for the math, the teachers actually kind of stop instruction for a time right here before we tested. They're testing this week actually for math, and so they have stopped instruction. They have lots of information, lots of resources that they can pull from College Board, from some of the other resources we've actually purchased that have practice exams in them for kids to work through and those types of problems, and then lots of discussions about how that's going to look when it's actually on the computer versus just the pencil and paper. And so I've made sure to be a part of that, so is Debbie, with the English and the math, so that we're in there with kids, reminding them what they can and can't do during the test. For example, on the math, they can't use a graphing calculator like they can on the EOC exams. It only gives them a calculator when the computer wants to, and it's an icon on the screen, so they actually have to pull that up and actually use a mouse to click on that calculator, which they've never had to do before. And so things like that they just need to hear about and be ready for whenever they enter the testing environment.
Going back to these simulations and the kind of practices that they've been doing for both TSI and for EOCs or anything like that. So when you gave a simulation, let's talk about what you would do with the data that you got from that simulation.
We take a look at the TEKs, the specific questions that were weakest, that the kids did not do well on, and take a look at that question and really determine if this is a knowledge type question or if it's an application question. And typically our kids from the same TEK will falter on those application questions. And so really looking at how to teach them rather than just how to find or recognize the tone, but explain what the purpose of it is and how to determine what the effect of it was. And so those are the reviews that we'll go through and have them read some more and try some more questions and really look at the way the question is worded too. Sometimes can be a little tricky. So really looking at that so that the kids know when it asks me this is the answer that it's looking